So, very, very good evening and welcome. I'm Cicely George, the Executive Director of TIE Dubai, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you here today. And I believe this session is super important for every one of us. And as a community, when we come together to create a voice and platform to talk about mental health, I think it becomes even more relevant. Along with Dubai Internet City, our partner over 21 years, TIE Dubai is very pleased to bring you this topic. When we planned it, we didn't realize it was actually Mental Health Awareness Month, but we're really pleased that it tied into the month. It should be all the time. I mean, like women empowerment, mental health, it should be all the time. So today is Your Mind Matters, Navigating Mental Health in Today's World. I'm putting all efforts to make sure that the introductions are super tight because we have an absolutely loaded panel covering various aspects and perspectives of mental health, including what some of these really dedicated founders are looking to build to create newer, equitable access to resolving mental health. The session is actually broken into 3 parts, where we have 2 panels and a fireside chat in the middle. Panel 1 is where we talk about where we are with mental health today. Then we get into a fireside chat with someone who I'm personally an ardent fan of, and I know many others in the room have rescheduled agendas to be here. She's one of the pioneers in mental health in this region and has been such a vulnerable and strong voice in this space. She personally helped me navigate COVID. If I didn't have her content, I think it would be a different story. I want to proudly say that this is an important and critical space for a young, dynamic, and evolving country like UAE, where the federal government has issued a federal law on mental health as early as December last year, aligning with the latest practices and advancement in mental health care landscape, securing the rights of psychiatrists and ensuring the provision of the best physical and mental care. It also redefines mental health and psychiatric patient in accordance with the latest practices and concepts in mental health field. Before we get into the panel itself, I'll do a very quick introduction to TIE Dubai, a few words for all those who are not. I think some of you asked me outside, but I've saved it for the inside. So TIE started as a small gathering in Silicon Valley in 1992 and has now more than 60 chapters in 12 countries. So how TIE functions is on 5 main pillars: mentoring, networking, education, funding, and incubation. While TIE has a global reach, we make sure the chapter gets to focus on the regional ecosystem. There are some great programs which we run for all entrepreneurs here in the UAE and across the wider MENA region. We run a mentorship program, extremely beneficial for founders and companies that are looking for support from seasoned and successful entrepreneurs who will help you navigate your startup journey better. So the mentorship batch actually will launch in June, July, so do keep your eyes out on our social media for all founders who are looking for this. The TIE Women MENA program, focusing on helping women entrepreneurs, is quite an amazing program, which Krishia actually will share a bit more. We are actually taking in applications at the moment, so do make sure you convey this to, there are a lot of people from the ecosystem, so if you're a founder yourself, make sure you apply and also share it with other women founders. It's the 5th year that it's running. Krishia, if you can share a few words on TIE Women and share with the community.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all take out time for today's event, which is, I think, a very, very important aspect of any entrepreneur's journey. It is really a great opportunity for us today to get expert advice on any sort of mental health challenges that we face, and I promise this is a safe space to bring up absolutely any of your concerns with our esteemed panel, and really hope for a better future for all of us. I would also like to take this opportunity to talk about TIE Dubai's flagship program, TIE Women MENA, Program 2024. So TIE Women MENA here is a collaborative community where we believe being a part of a bigger game to make sure that the deserving founders are able to access high quality network with our charter members, continuously working towards supporting female entrepreneurs through mentoring, workshops, focusing on honing their pitches, and connecting them with potential investors. There are some stories of Thai women businesses getting funded by a jury member, and another one while just being a part of the cohort that year. So this year we're running in our 5th year, and we want to make it bigger and better to create the impact and make the difference happen. At almost every step, the women are mentored, which in my opinion is invaluable. So we make sure that they have access to mentoring, and sometimes even more than one mentor, depending on their specific challenges. Whatever it may be, we're really here to work with them throughout their journey. Even the workshops that are regularly conducted like this one by internationally renowned companies and professionals. It is indeed a life-changing experience with this program. So I really, really urge all of you to, the founders, to apply. And if you have your community where you can pass this around, it's really something that is going to benefit the women entrepreneurs to a different level. So do look out for us on social media like Insta, FB, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And now I'd like to take the honor and introduce one of the successful entrepreneurs from Thai Women Cohort 2023. So please welcome Aurore, founder of Ninju.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Aurore. I'm one of the co-founders of Ninju. Ninju is an active lifestyle concept store that was born out of the idea that people don't really equip themselves because they think sports accessories is this ugly thing, it's not exciting, and we keep it under the bed or in the garages. And we decided to look for brands that are doing things differently. Do I need to get closer? Yeah. Oh, okay. And so I was just saying that the concept was born out of the idea that people don't really equip themselves when it comes to fitness accessories. And we decided to look for brands that are doing things differently, whether they're be it using better materials, better design, innovation, technology, to make the category more exciting, more desirable. We started with an online concept store. We grew into a lot of B2B, supplying hotels, interior designers, architecture firms, and then evolved into becoming a distributor for some of these key brands, and are now even expanding into services in design for home gyms and entertainment areas at home. I was lucky to be part of the Thai Dubai Women program last year, and since then I've become a very loyal attendee to all events, be it offline or online. And on top of the mentoring, I have to say I found the team to be genuinely passionate about the mission to support entrepreneurship and women in entrepreneurship. The topics are always really spot on, very interesting. The experts that are brought onto panels, webinars, and workshops are always of the highest level that I have seen in the region. So I really do encourage everybody to sign up and recommend the program. And I look forward to this panel on mental health. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aurore. And now we have a special guest here, actually. She's flown all the way from Amman to be here at our event. And she is also the winner of Rest of Middle East Thai Women Program 2022. Welcome, Alizar.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alisar Tawil, and I am the founder and CEO of the Modest Wear Brand Group. Today was supposed to be a coffee meetup with Cicely, but apparently there's this event going on, and I thought, why not share a few words? So it's an actual pleasure to be here with the Thai Dubai family once again. Their support, honestly, has been something I'm forever grateful for. So back in 2019, I had this idea of switching up my wardrobe because I was quite fed up and bored with the options that were available for women like myself who wear hijab. I wanted something, let's say, a little bit more trendy, but I was limited by the clothing options. And a lot of the times, in order to make the clothing work for me, I would just mix and match many pieces and do layers upon layers in order to achieve the style or the look that I was going for. But as you can imagine, this obviously involved many moving parts, undershirts, undercaps, pins, scarves, just to keep it all in place. And then one day I was like, what if I could make something that would just be like an all-in-one situation, and then I could just wear it as a base layer, and it would make my life so much easier. And that is when the idea for our patented Rook hijab bodysuit was born, which I am obviously wearing right now. And honestly, it's been such a game changer for myself and for the thousands of women who have supported us along the way. It's opened up the doors and made the shopping experience, especially for women like myself, so much easier, because now they feel like they have the freedom to dress how they wish. And alhamdulillah, so we've been around, so we launched in January of 2020, funny enough, the year of COVID. But despite all of the challenges and the ups and downs that we've experienced, we have built quite the online base that I am very proud of. We have over, I think at this point between our socials, 150,000 followers, and we're just growing every day, and it's been phenomenal to have the support of so many women from all across the world, and it is basically the thing that keeps us going, despite all of the difficulties and challenges that come with running your own business. So thank you so much for having me today, and I'm actually really excited for the panel. But thank you.
Thank you, Kushia, for all that you do for Thai women. It's been really fabulous to work alongside. She leads with passion and dedication. She volunteers her time to support the program. And thank you, Aliza and Aurora, to be here. It's been great to work with you guys as well. So your goal is skins and spanks. So remember that, right? Yeah. So, as I was saying, Thai Dubai is the Middle East chapter and based in Dubai Internet City and has been around for 21 years. The easiest way to be part of the community is to really follow us on our social channels, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere we're Thai Dubai. YouTube has a lot of good content, and you can just look for Thai Dubai. A very special thank you to all the charter members of Thai Dubai, to all the board members who make all the amazing in the chapter happen for the entire MENA region. Thank you to DIC especially, and all the supporting partners that keep Thai Dubai chapter moving forward. In5, Skyline University, Paramount Computers, Ask Pankaj. Before I hand over, I want to quickly mention that whilst we love audience Q&A, just being mindful of time, we will allow for 1 or 2 during each panel. And depending on the time, we'll have to manage and keep most of it towards the end. So getting on to today's session, I'd like to invite all the members of panel 1, and I'll introduce Louisa Chitor, the moderator for session. If all the panelists can join, I think we can start. I'll just introduce Louisa and she'll call on everybody to introduce. She's a trailblazing author and innovation leader. In 2020, she spearheaded the launch of Middle East's first digital health accelerator in the UAE in partnership with Abu Dhabi's Department of Health and key players like Mubadala and Etihad Airways. She didn't stop there. In 2022, she went on to pioneering InsurTech Accelerator in Saudi and with the Council of Health Insurance. Her influence extends across the health sector, enhancing innovation for giants like Pfizer, Novo, Nordisk, and Philips. She currently serves as an advisor to several top-tier government and private entities on innovation strategies. She also founded the GCC's inaugural venture studio dedicated to digital health, tracking major healthcare challenges region-wide. A committed angel investor and advocate for women in tech, she also played a vital role in the 2022 Female Angels Initiative. Thank you, Louisa. I leave it to you to introduce and welcome all the esteemed panelists. There is actually one more panelist who's all the way from Sharjah. If he comes in time, we'll definitely pull him in.
I don't know if I should. Yeah. Can you hear me well? Great. And sorry for the long intro. You don't have to. We're not gonna get. We're gonna get right into the game and into this fascinating conversation. What I love about this panel is not only the caliber that we have here with us today, but also the diversity of thoughts and expertise which can allow us to have a 360 view of the topic. So without further ado, I'll let Dr. Saliha Afridi introduce herself. If she needs introduction, you should know her if you are interested in the topic, but pleasure to have you here, Dr. Saliha.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah? So thank you all for having me. I'm Dr. Saliha Afridi. I am a clinical psychologist and the chairwoman and founder of the Lighthouse Arabia, which is one of the first mental health clinics here in the UAE. We are now one of the largest mental health clinics in the region with over 42 clinicians that are working across the board through psychiatry, psychology, speech and language therapy, and occupational therapy. We work with everybody across the board, children, adults, couples, families, and corporations, the education sector. We're in schools and in companies, and so that's what we do, and we've been doing that for 13 years.
Pleasure having you. Sneha?
Hello. My name is Sneha, and I hope it's not too loud. I represent Takalam. I'm a mental health counselor, counseling psychologist at Takalam. I work with clients from various ranges, and a little bit extra about me, I enjoy offering, the unique technique I bring to my practice is that I offer a somatic-oriented Hakomi approach, which is not just a combination of CBT, but also you connect with your mindfulness practice, with your emotions, with your body's needs, everything. So that's something that I work with my clients, and it's really been helpful so far for a lot of them. I also enjoy working with, youth, adults, and elderly. And so far, we've seen a lot of progress using various approaches. So I use integrative approach for anxiety treatment and trauma-focused treatment for childhood trauma. And it's been very beneficial for a lot of them. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Sneha, is it?
Great. I'm the head of human resources for Cigna Healthcare, Middle East and Africa. I hope most of you are familiar with Cigna. You're mostly known as an insurance company, medical health. Yes, on. Yeah. So I have been in HR for exactly 25 years now. I worked in different industries. 7 years with Cigna. Mental health is an area that we have been tirelessly working on, as we are an organization that our passion is improving health and vitality of those we serve. So it's part of our DNA now, and I feel lucky to be part of an organization that can talk about mental health, to destigmatize it. So it's great to be here. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. And just to kick things off, obviously, I know it might be redundant, but we cannot talk about mental health without talking about the shift that happened during COVID. We suddenly discovered that there is something like mental health that needs to be addressed. So I think rather than just dwelling upon what happened, it's what do you think, looking now 4 years back, what changed in terms of access, in terms of awareness, and in terms of appearance of new mental health problems since the pandemic, and also the subsequent phenomenon that happened, whether it's like the new ways of working, the remote work, and all like the layoffs. A lot of things happened since 2020. So what is your view on the good and the bad that COVID created in the mental health space? I'll start with you, Dr. Saliha.
So I remember in October of 2019, I went to one of the organizations here, and I said, something is coming, and there is something brewing, I can feel it. And our wait list at that time for the clinic was over 700 people. we were not able to serve the need. It was really, really quite intense in October 2019. So when anybody tells me, well, something happened in 2020, I said that had been happening for quite some time before 2020. It's just that with 2020, one major shift that happened was that the workplace said, actually, this is our issue too. Until 2020, we were in schools, we were in, community centers, we were in our clinic, but the workplace had really kind of left us out because they said, don't bring your problems into work. Like, you keep your problems at home and you bring your work to work. And that bridge between, oh wait, the home is the work and the work is the home, so now everybody's problem is our problem. All of a sudden that shifted in a very drastic way. And so corporate wellness started to include not just physical health and well-being and massages and yoga, but actually conversations that were very important, such as mental health. And so I think that shifted. Another thing shifted in the UAE at that time is that for the first time, I've been working with the Dubai government and we were talking about mental health for quite some time before, but we still didn't really talk about mental health. We called it emotional health, psychological health, we called it all sorts of health, but like to say mental health, I remember the first time we did that was on an Instagram live, and it was like, we're gonna say mental health, and they, it was one of the government organizations, and then they said, okay, we'll say mental health, and then they said mental well-being. Like, they still couldn't call it mental health, so there still was a lot of resistance. But then, the thing about the UAE, which is so amazing, is that once they decide to do something, they move very fast. And that's what has happened since 2020. So I think those would be the major shifts. Now, obviously, with work life sort of accelerating, it's AI, whether it's telehealth, whether it's working from home and Zoom, and we think that some of this hybrid working has actually made things easier. Well, in many cases it has. But in many cases, the boundaries between what was work, what was home, they were already blurring with the laptop and our handheld devices, but now they're completely blurred. And so the boundaries, internal boundaries, self-awareness, knowing when should I put away work, when should I sit with my kids, those kinds of things we haven't really negotiated or settled inside of it yet. So those are kind of the new challenges that it brings. And then I would say that it's just, of course, mental health is an issue. 1 out of 4 adults, if we look in this room, globally is struggling with some mental health condition. And I'm not talking about mental illness, I'm talking about a mental health condition, such as depression or anxiety, which is actually quite common. And 1 out of 5 kids is struggling with a mental health condition. If you think about dementia on the rise, the individuals in this room are probably part of that sandwich generation, which is to take care of their elderly and take care of their young children, and everyone is struggling, and so the women and the caregivers struggle even more. So there's a lot of things that happen, that have happened since 2020, that I would say that it almost feels like a pressure cooker of issues.
Thank you, Doctor. And I want maybe for you first to maybe reply or have comments from an organizational point of view, Signa, have you noticed the same shifts and the recognition of mental health not being something employees have to deal with at home? Because sometimes that work pressure or whatever can actually be the source of some of these conditions. So how do you navigate that from an organization?
Yeah, in fact, Dr. Saliha touched on something before COVID or even recently, like personal life and professional life. Even from myself, in my early career days, I remember I was told, you know what, I don't want to hear your stories, just you have to be at work and just focus on work. Whereas now, we want people to bring their whole selves to work. I really want people to open up, to speak up. But this is interesting. I think it's such a topic we can talk a lot. Because just before COVID, in fact, we had a partnership with Saudi Arabia. For us, mental health has always been. That's why I feel myself quite lucky. We have been talking about it, not only after COVID, but before COVID as well, because we believed in whole health, right? It's fact, our most recent Vitality study is even like there are 8 aspects, even environmental, spiritual. It's much more comprehensive than we think. But then, yeah, going back to that time, we couldn't even do it face to face at that time. We had to convert it to a virtual mental health first training with our 25 managers. We are quite a small organization in Dubai, with 180 people, and 25 of them are certified at that time. But during that training also, I have seen so many people opening up, breaking down, and talking about themselves, their problems. And it was fascinating because that's what we want. We don't want it to be isolated, just, okay, just focus on work, I really don't care about
The
the
safe
rest.
space creation.
Yes.
I just want to have a small request. If you can share the handheld mics,
Yeah.
because the camera is also picking the sound. The lapels are not.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
So we
that's
definitely
Thank you so much.
we will. So going back to even psychological safety, you just mentioned, in fact, I think it was Dr. Robert, I never forget, he mentioned it takes 8 years in an organization to build psychological safety. I was, really shocked to hear that, because I always felt that, we have a psychological safe space for everyone in our organization. It's not that easy. So it's from manager to manager. It can be different. Everybody's approach. We really want to make sure that we are quite aligned in the organization, but it is really taking time to build that trust. But if you really make it very natural, right? Again, that you get rid of that stigma. There are studies, even our study shows that, when you really normalize and talk about mental health, and you really want people to bring their whole selves to work, people trust the organizations more. In fact, there's a study showing that it's 5 times more. And they feel more proud also to work for their organizations, 3 times more than other organizations. So there's some even data on it.
You provided the perfect segue for my next point, which is more related to stigma. We are in a region, let's call it Eastern cultures, Middle East, Asia, where probably mental health, I'm from Algeria, and for us, like growing up, you have to be tough, you have to, soldier on and carry on, because that's what people do. So how do you think we're evolving as a society here to destigmatize, seeking, not just being able to recognize that something is wrong, but also seeking help? So I see you nodding, so maybe
Dr. Saliha can, it seems like even from before COVID, there was a huge demand. Again, there's some data that in the last 3 years, people asking for mental support in this region is 6 times more. So, I think people understanding the importance of mental health, because it's also preventative as well, right, Dr. Saliha, and with you as well. So it's, we want people to know that all of us, we have mental health. We might not be having mental illness, but we all have it, and we need to take care of it. So that's what we are encouraging in our organization, that, make sure that you take your breaks during the day, you take your time off when it's when you're on an annual leave, switch off as much as possible. Digital detox, after working hours, we're trying to encourage everyone, not to check their emails. I mean, some small tips here and there. It's still not easy in many organizations, but again, from leadership perspective, we as my executive committee, for example, we really want to make sure that we lead by example, so that the rest of the organization can follow us. But I'll give it to experts. All right. So I totally agree with what you've just said about stigma. And it is all about, it is us. We need to start somewhere about destigmatizing mental health. And it's already begun. Many places it's already begun. It's already happening. And the beautiful part is that it's happening at schools. You know, we're all in schools, it's beginning, and that's where we need to start. We need our education to start with schools, with parents, with caregivers, with educational specialists, mental health care workers, and schools working together as a team to bring this out and about. That's where it's all gonna break. And a lot of times I've seen that, you know, young children with their elderly grandparents talking to them, and elderly grandparents not talking and not listening to their own, you know, kids more, but they're listening to their grandkids more about these things. And the grandkids are telling them, Mom and Dad, we learned, or Grandpa, Grandma, we learned about, you know, anxiety today in school, and it's okay. Sometimes I do have these feelings, and it's okay to have them. I'm going to take care of myself. And the grandparents like, oh, that's interesting, and it feels more normalized when it comes from the younger kids, and they're able to listen more and understand. Dr. Saliha.
When we talk about stigma, I've always wondered, well, what is it about this topic that is so stigmatized, right? Of course, in this region, we don't talk about our problems with people that are strangers. We try to keep it under hush-hush, and don't, you know, what will people say if they find out? And there's almost this institutionalized idea of mental health. And I think the problem with the issue is that we call it mental health. I think if we didn't call it mental health, and if I said here, who here has relationship issues? Who here struggles with setting boundaries? Who here has stress when it comes to managing their, you know, work or their family? Every single person would raise their hand. And so I think when we have to deconstruct mental health rather than talking about it in this envelope of just like one lump sum and everybody has mental health, because that's like saying, who here has physical health? Well, what part of physical health are we talking about? Are you talking about your skin? Are you talking about my liver? Are we talking about my heart? And so really deconstructing that, demystifying that. And that has been my mission. I moved here 15 years ago from the US, and that was like literally the only mission I was on. And that was way before social media. And I would go school to school, office to office, basically anyone who would hear me talk about mental health. And my parents were like, this is never gonna work. You don't understand where you are. I was like, I'm gonna make it work. And so this is, I think, talking about and normalizing that I have a therapist. I see my therapist twice a week, and I love seeing my therapist. It's a great way for me to reset myself, talk about the things that are coming up for me, talking about the fact that my kids have a therapist, my husband has a therapist. I did ask their permission to be able to say that but I do think it's important to say that I use that as preventative care. You don't go to the dentist when you have a cavity. You go to the dentist to prevent. You brush your teeth, you floss to avoid going to the dentist, and you go for your 6-month cleanings. It's a lot like this, and we have to change the way we talk about mental health rather in a treatment model and thinking about it more in a preventative model. The sad thing is that we don't actually learn about how do you cope with stressful feelings. My kids are not learning this in school. We did not learn this in school. So then life comes and we have problems, and then we don't know what to do with them. And that's when you go to a mental health professional who can help coach you, guide you, teach you, work with you, build some skills, and then you have stronger mental health and you have more resilience. So it actually is not this kind of mysterious thing, but I think because we lump it up into this 2-word statement of mental health, I think that's where the stigma still has a strong hold.
And like, just between you two, Sneha and Dr. Saliha, like, because for mental health, there are different demographics. So you have the employees that, you know, have certain support system, but then, like, you know, we have the housewives, the stay-at-home moms, the elderly, the children. So for these, what are some of the measures or strategies, especially maybe at an early age, what are the tools that we collectively as a society can avail, like give them, so that they're more comfortable seeking help, or at least understanding their, just like we understand our body better by measuring things, by looking at things, how can we help this population, these demographics, kind of be more self-aware?
So Cecile mentioned mental health first aid. So the Lighthouse is the sole licensed provider of mental health first aid, which is an Australian program. It's in 23 countries, and it is basically like physical first aid, but for mental health. I think every adult and every parent and every teen should be trained in mental health first aid. That's just like basic knowledge. The The second thing that I would say is that we really need to put a strong emphasis on emotional intelligence. And another one of these buzzwords, but no one really knows what it means. And emotional intelligence is a lot about self-awareness, self-regulation, other awareness, and then social skills. So we need to have skills in these areas, and we need to start very, very early. My other business is I created a board game, which is Smart Heart Board Game, which is a board game you play with children, and it teaches emotional literacy, it teaches emotional vocabulary. The research shows that most adults only have like a 6-word emotional vocabulary: sad, mad, glad, happy, upset. And no one knows, but there's a big difference between me saying I'm hurt versus I feel betrayed. Wow, right? You really feel the difference between those two. So really becoming quite nuanced in your emotional vocabulary actually helps you with the self-regulation. We all will struggle. We all will have difficulties. What we do in those difficulties will be based off of a toolbox that we have. And that toolbox is what we need to build, whether it's in schools, whether it's in workplaces, or whether it's on your own with a professional.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Sneha, for the toolbox?
Absolutely, and I totally agree with what you've said. We all need to learn how to, especially from a young age, how to regulate our emotions and to regulate ourselves and even understand what we're experiencing. You know, it's okay to experience what we're experiencing, and having a safe toolbox, you know, learning tools to take care of it. So one thing that I've learned is we have this emotion wheel I've used with a lot of my clients. And anytime they're feeling, I don't know what's going on with me, I don't want to learn, you know, I want to understand, I want to break things down, and I want your help. So they would come to me and they're like, I need your help with this. I said, okay, let's look at the emotion wheel. And so we go through the whole emotion wheel. It has these different parts. So there are 4 parts of it: anger, sadness, I'm sure you're aware of that. And, you know, we have different sections of it, different layers of it, and they are able to identify exactly what the emotion is, and that helps them feel, like you said, regulated and feel like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Just like there was a difference between betrayed and feeling bad, really knowing, and that makes us feel a lot better. So having these tools, for a young kid, I'd use this bottle of water with a lot of glitter and glue and everything, and you know, when you shake it up, you tell the kid, okay, this is what I'm feeling. And this is what you're feeling right now. Now let the glitter settle from the bottle and see how that feels. So like that, we can provide them with different tools, and it helps them regulate themselves. And teaching emotion regulation, teaching these are different emotions you can identify from a young age, or whatever your age is, really helps. Education really helps in these aspects.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to you, and we're going to slightly shift gears here and talk about that accessibility and that / affordability, because as we've seen, more and more people are aware, like waiting lists are skyrocketing in a good, like the good thing is that people are more aware. The more challenging thing for the rest of the ecosystem, be it the provider, the payer, or the regulator, is try to make sense of it, economic sense, in terms of balancing the access versus it being out of control. So what is your take, at least from a very high point of view, of what's happening in the GCC currently, and what do you think you as a payer, working with providers, working with the government to try and make sense of that for it to be sustainable?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And yeah, so again, I would like to start with a couple of data points, because you know, our recent Vitality study showed us that in fact 7 out of 10 people are looking for mental health support. However, it's 2/3 of the employers want more productivity from employees now. So there's a bit of a challenge there that we always see. The other challenge is the medical costs, or you know, inflation that we see in this part of the world is quite high. I mean, 2021 it was around 10%, 2022 it was around 15%, and last year it was around 14%. So it's making it difficult for employees to access care. And the other issue is, of course, most of the companies are having these corporate medical plans, insurance plans, but the portion with the psychiatry benefits, we call it, or mental health benefits, can be limited still. So that's something we are, seeing it's changing. And in fact, even I can see in our own plan that people are using that benefit more and more. It's I'm closely monitoring, because we really want, as Dr. Saliha mentioned, I mean, from preventative perspective, it's not like only when, oh my God, I really have a problem, let me go. No, before it comes, we really want them to take care of their mental health. So it's important, but access is an issue. And when we look at the stress factors, one of the biggest factors is cost of living in this part of the world. And we're all expats, so that also brings extra stress. Most of the people are away from their families, or the sandwich generation, again, as Dr. Saliha mentioned. They're expats, but they are stuck between even their elderly parents back home and then their growing kids in the UAE or in KSA. So it's really tough environment.
Not an easy answer. What about you, Sneha? You're providing mental health care, so how do you ensure you can cope with that, and what do you need from the rest of the stakeholders to help you in your mission to provide an affordable or accessible healthcare service?
So important thing is that we recognize, that the cost everywhere is a lot. So for Takalama, I can say that the mission is to keep things affordable and available for people, especially if it's a virtual therapy session. We keep that in mind, that it should be accessible for everyone. It's important to take care of our health, our mental health, or our well-being, and that is something. Is there anything else you would like for me to add there?
I think it's just thinking about like the population you're serving. How do you find strategies around increasing awareness, or offering those tools to the people that cannot necessarily, you've dealt with students, so obviously you had a target market that was not addressed. How do you plan for the future to widen that access?
Absolutely. So we do have a lot of plans in place for that. I've been working with the younger demographic as well as the adults and elderly, and it's played out well. And future possibilities, of course, we are offering webinars, workshops, making it mental health accessible to as many possible. So the future is that just reaching out, offering services, offering workshops, offering webinars on different topics, offering support groups. That's what we're doing to make it accessible for each and every age group, and whatever they've been going through, these concerns they've been going through for different topics, not just about depression, anxiety, but also about grief, also about needing support for, let's say, communication within the workplace, listening within the workplace, needing help with that. And so we're here to help in different ways we can, as much as possible. Dr. Saliha, would you like to add anything?
Let's see. I think one of the main reasons we think sometimes that it is because of affordability. And I would say that's one of the reasons where, okay, it is, you have to go week after week, and it's not like a one-shot fix. You have to spend time, sometimes 8 to 10 sessions, sometimes 10 to 12 sessions, sometimes longer, depending on what the issue is. So this is a costly endeavor, but when I say costly, it also takes a lot of time. So I would say while cost is a barrier, so is time. Time is also quite a big barrier when it comes to how do I tend to myself. And you will find that I read in some study, I'm pretty sure it was a McKinsey study. Actually, don't quote me. I don't know where I read it. I read it somewhere, though. It was a really important document, which said that actually there are so many women that know they're struggling, and they have the insurance, they have the money, but they actually don't have time or energy to tend to this. Because going to therapy, you have to work. It's not like you lay down and someone is working on your facial or your hair or something. It actually requires a lot of effort on your part to shift patterns that are deeply, deeply ingrained. And so energy is also a barrier, I would say. But one thing that when it comes to costs, if we were able to just say, hey, listen, we're all going to talk about mental health, okay? Yeah, we're all going to talk that we have issues, and we're all going to be able to talk about them. We would be able to do group therapy, which is something that we can do in the US. And if we were able to do group therapy, the cost per person would be a whole lot lower than if you have one person and one therapist, which is definitely going to be a whole lot higher versus one therapist and 8 people within a group. So I tried the whole group therapy. Every 2 years, I say, all right, this is going to be it, and nobody shows up. And so we have support groups. They are led by psychologists. They are free of charge. So it's like free therapeutic spaces. And those are even still hard because I think the stigma is still there, and Dubai is a village and everyone knows everybody, and I don't want to run into somebody. So, and so that thing is still going on. But we will get there. But I think group therapy would be the next frontier for me.
Very good point. I see our fourth panelist has, please feel free to join and share with us your thoughts. So I'll leave the floor to you to introduce. Oh, hi. Yes.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Sorry for the delay.
Maybe just a quick intro for the audience, and I'm gonna be right back at you for a question. So get ready, Dr. Ahmed.
Yeah. Good evening. Well, the delay actually is out of my control, okay? So sorry for that, yeah. Thank you so much. So actually, I'm at Skyline Uni here, okay? And I'm here in UAE since 16 years. I used to be in Thailand almost 10 years, so I can speak 5 languages. Arabic, of course, my mother language, plus French, Malay language, and Thai language. And I'm learning Chinese with Japanese too.
Ni hao.
Thank you. So with the nice faces, hopefully you enjoy this session, or this panel discussion. And actually, mental health, as you know, is the very important part for the human being life. We can take care about our bodies, food, etc. But the empty soul, the empty mind, you cannot do anything with that. So that's the reason why I think we're supposed to have a balance between the mental and body. Otherwise, there will be an imbalance. And of course, the more important for myself, according to my experience, for the Buddhism culture, so the spiritual, it's very, very, very important. And that's the part that we're supposed to focus on. I know, religion of Islam is there, Buddhism, etc., etc. But all that, it works for the mental health.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. I'll get back to you in a second, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to say, because I don't know how much time we have left, but I have a few questions in store.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Sure.
So I think, just to focus, Thai and the theme, technology is here to stay, and it might be the answer I'll be very careful with my words here, for the accessibility or awareness or even prevention, detection. There are whole areas beyond just the provision of care that technology can actually play a role in. Where do you see technology having most impact to support either the clinicians or the patients or actually the general population in addressing mental health? So I'll start with you.
So a lot of people think, well, technology is here and like human beings will be replaced by bots and then you won't need therapists. And so everybody's wondering, should I still be a psychologist? You can't have no idea how many people message me that are young students that are wondering if they should still study psychology. And I say, no, there is no replacement for the human nervous system and there is no replacement for co-regulation. And while I believe technology will definitely make information more accessible, but too much information can also just result in pressure. Right. So like, I think we have like information overload right now. And so I'm not sure if we need more information. We need to almost bridge the gap between the information and why is it that I cannot apply the information. I know what to do, but I don't know why I'm not doing it. That why I think we need to close, but that's another subject. When it comes to technology, the biggest changes that I've seen is inaccessibility. So we have people dialing in from all over the world at this point, from people who want therapists that are Middle Eastern, or people who want therapists that live in the Middle East because they grew up in the Middle East and no one in the US understands what it feels like to be a third culture kid. And so there's a lot of bridges that are being built across different continents and different understandings. It also has made hybrid working easier, so it's made it a little bit easier for the therapists, where they can work from anywhere, they can work from home. But I will say that having a clinic, and because it would be like, oh great, we could shut down 2 of the villas and then we will only have 2 and people can work from home, and it just didn't work. People want to come and sit in front of us in our therapy room, even when they know that they have access to Zoom. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think the safety and security and privacy that comes with being in a therapist office is not replaceable. My therapist is online, so I do my therapy online, but I've sat with her in person when I went to California, and it's just a whole different. It's like a totally different experience. So if you've only had online therapy, I would say try it with a person in the room, and you might find that different. So I think accessibility, convenience, information, those would be the ways that I would say that in the near future.
And I think this is a great parallel with virtual care in general, because people thought that now no need to build hospitals anymore, people will never come back to, like, guess what, as soon as COVID was over, people actually wanted that human interaction because the physician sees you, there are more information to decode from that interaction. Now, and the same question maybe goes to you, like, because I don't want to reduce technology to a platform or the accessibility, but maybe the detection, the remote monitoring, all these new emerging areas that are additional tools for existing clinicians to really optimize the engagement you have with patients rather than...
For sure, the wearables are really a great thing, and people are tracking their sleep and their steps and their mood and their heart rate and all of that stuff, but that can also lead to a lot of anxiety because people are like, I slept okay, but this thing tells me I didn't sleep, and it's like, trust yourself, and you know, how do you feel? And so sometimes that information, if you're disconnected and not attuned, can also be a little bit dangerous. So I think all of these are tools, but we as the human beings still need to trust ourselves and our nervous system and our intuition and our own guidance.
Thank you. Sneha?
So personally, I feel that, yes, I agree with you, but also another level, technology helps a lot of people, especially with virtual therapy. It's helped a lot of students, you know, and a lot of people, I've got clients from USA, I've got clients from Europe, I've got clients from India dialing in, you know, and it's a great approach to have something that they can reach out, and it's affordable, you know, services, speaking for Takalem. So it's definitely benefited a lot of people. Of course, the personal experience of being in the same room is not there. But beyond that, we also have experience of, let's say someone is not comfortable, you know, having a therapy, they're nervous, they are like, okay, I'm not sure if I want to be seen yet. And so they have the option of turning off their video cameras and still hearing the voice can be heard. There's these audio-visual sounds I can pick up on when I'm in the session with the client. And that also tells me a lot about the client, just from the audio, just from the energies, just from the voice of words that they're saying. And then the video is there, and sometimes I have clients who are like, okay, I've finished work, there was no privacy there, I have no privacy at home, I would like to have a session from my car. Sometimes we just have a session virtually from the car, and that's okay, it works out. So do you have a lot of range of experience, a lot of open things to explore with technology that can also be done, and that's been helping a lot of people who sometimes can't go in person to session, but or doesn't have a space or time. And time management also helps them from driving from one place to a room somewhere, traffic, you can name anything. So maybe just virtual session helps them with that too.
Thank you. So, like Cigna being innovation driven, how do you see technology helping you in your mission in creating at least that safe work environment where they can seek potentially mental health resources?
Yeah, well, I think we already touched on telehealth in a way, which we are using not only for our employees but for our members as well. And I think that was when during COVID, we saw that it's amazing to access care at least via telehealth. Same with employee assistance programs, maybe not directly in relation to technology, but again, it's a safe place because you can call anonymously. So I think that's also quite important to be able to provide the employees. And I think the other aspect of technology, but maybe not directly in relation to mental health, but when you think about more automation or the technology that helps us to bring efficiency to our work, that also removes the stress levels. So that's quite important in work life, and that's continuously we're trying to see, how we can ease our employees' lives so that they can get rid of that stress. So that's always on our agenda from HR perspective.
Yeah, I think from what you guys said, there's some sort of complementarity because there's such a huge demand that it's going to be a mix of technology and human, in harmony. Hopefully, to be able to address such spiking demand. I think people are signaling to me to start the questions. So I'll open the floor. May I open? Two questions. So who's the brave first one to ask? Yeah? At the back. I'll leave it to the professionals.
See, this is the thing that I was saying. People say mental health, but what are they really talking about, right? Yes, exactly.
What is really happening?
Yes.
What is the difference between mind and brain?
Yeah. So there is a brain, and it is an organ, and then the mind is everything that is your thoughts, your feelings, but it also is, your mind is throughout your body. They say there is the gut brain and the heart brain and the brain, and all of those parts of you are thinking. And then we have the fascia, which actually holds a lot of our trauma. So the whole nervous system, from your head all the way down to all the different parts of your organs and your vagus nerve, could all be considered the mind. And all of that is actually picking up information, and all of that is actually processing information, and all of that is actually holding trauma. So if you do somatic work and somatic experiencing, emotional, EMDR, brain spotting, these types of therapies, you will find that you will be connecting with some part in your ankle, for example, and there will be a memory that might come up for you, which then needs to be processed. So the mind would be your whole being, but the brain is actually your brain. And the brain is communicating with your gut. A lot of our neurochemicals are actually produced in our gut. 95% of our serotonin, which is the happy chemical, which is in our, happy antidepressants, those are actually produced in your gut. and your dopamine, and so which is our motivation or pleasure chemical. So this idea, it's actually quite a Western idea to break the mind and the brain and the body into different compartments. And because Western medicine is so specialized, where the cardiologist is not speaking to the neurologist, who is not speaking to the GI specialist, and everybody just focuses on themselves. And if you go to one doctor, they will give you one diagnosis, and if you go to another one, he will give you a totally different diagnosis. And burnout could actually be diagnosed by multiple doctors as multiple different things. And so that's the issue with Western medicine. But if you go to an Eastern medicine, Ayurvedic or Chinese medicine, you will find that they will go after some of these organs and they will find the root of the issue there, but it's the emotional body. So this mind, body, and physical, mental, all of this is actually made up. It's one being, and that being is suffering, and that being, the whole being, actually holds different aspects of a person's pain. Does anybody want to add to that?
Yeah. Anyway, when we talk about mental here, we're supposed to make difference between materials and souls. Actually, they are working both. Even your body is working well, but maybe when you feel depressed, there is something inside you, you upgrade your mental. So that's why I always make difference between the material and the soul. Both of them, when we combine, we can get healthy mental health. Thank you.
Another beautifully articulated. I see 2, 3 hands. You're gonna have to pick.
Hi, how are you? I wanted to ask about, for the HR, so from the company's perspective, and the mental health. When you talk about mental health in corporate setting, sorry, I understand that. It's always brought up in a context where we're doing things to ease the pain of employees or individuals, rather than look into what is causing that stress. I work in corporate wellness. I have a program. And I feel always HRs and companies are worried about productivity, loyalty, about showing up, about being there, about giving the company. They always come up with new terms like work-life blending, and it feels always like the company just wants more of the employee. And we do give them mental health first aiders, and we put them in circles to share. But are we really focusing on what's causing that? That's it.
I think yes. I mean, I want to say yes from my perspective, but as I shared in Cigna, we really care about. It's one of our values that we really care about our coworkers as much as we care about our members, our customers, as well as our clients. So I want to believe that we really go into the root cause of it and understand what is really causing that stress. But as we have spoken about it, it's not only about work, right? When you talk about burnout, it's a combination of personal, family, social, and other factors, not only work. But that's why we really want people to talk about it openly. So that safe, the psychological safe environment is extremely important. That's what I feel. I don't know if maybe Dr. Salih.
I think everybody's pointing the finger at everybody else. I think everyone needs to own their part. I think the employee is going to the company and saying, you fix it, and the employers are saying, well, you fix it. And I think everyone has to take accountability. The corporations have to figure out how to create a space that is a healthy work environment where these things are acknowledged, these things are talked about. There are certain boundaries put in place. There is psychological safety. And by the way, psychological safety is not safety to talk about psychological stuff. It's safety to make mistakes and to talk about things that are difficult without any kind of reprimand or punishment. And so the company has to do that part. But then individuals have to do their part. And I think that there's a lot of people hoping that someone will come save them. And I think you have to save yourself. And I think when everybody takes that position that I can only save myself, and maybe you work in an environment that is super high pressure, and maybe that's just not for you. And that having that self-awareness is going to be so important for you to say that, okay, high pressure environment, there's always these constant deadlines, it is not a place for me. But I know people who literally thrive on high pressure environments, and that is where they shine. So knowing who you are and do you fit into that industry or into that work environment is going to be also very important. I see a lot of resentment building between employee and company, but the company was actually quite clear. This is how we work. We are high intensity. We have deadlines. We have to have, our clients are quite demanding, especially in this region. And so this is who we are. Do you want this? And they're like, yes, yes, we want this. And then they get into it and they're like, well, I don't have work-life balance. And so we would never promised you work-life balance. So I think it's really important that people have self-awareness. They know their own boundaries. They know their own limits. They know what to do for themselves. And then they make some grown-up tough decisions, which is, I don't want to work for this company and I'll go work somewhere else.
I think it's not there's something missing. Sometimes people, individual employees, lack the skills, the things that you said, lack the awareness that I lack this. I lack how to invest my money. I lack how to manage my money. Then money becomes my problem. It's not the company problem. But I think this communication between the company and the employee is quite important.
Of course, transparency and communication is important, but no one can give you self-awareness except the self. No one can, the employer can give me access to therapy, they can give me access to good clinicians who really do self-awareness work, but then it's on me to do the work. And you know what, it is, and Carl Jung said it, he's a Swiss psychiatrist from a long time ago, and he actually said it, that it's one of the most difficult things you will do is to meet yourself. And most people will do everything in their power to not to. And so to meet yourself and to take ownership for your life, it is a heroic task. And we got to be heroes and we got to step into it.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions and thank you so much for your insights.
I'll repeat the same with the mic. But we really hope that you enjoyed the conversation, you learned something new, and hopefully you'll get to know yourselves a bit better now and embark on that journey. So it's a pleasure for me to pass on the mic for the next sessions, and thank you again to all our panelists for your time. Give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Louisa. I know you've come all the way to Abu Dhabi and you need to rush back. Thank you so much. So we'll get into a fireside chat with Dr. Saliha Afridi and Bashar. We will display the bios, so I'm not taking time to do the introduction because we are already running ahead of time. Bashar is our president-elect. He's a digital native as well.
Hello, good, thank you.
And Dr. Saliha, who needs no introduction, literally. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. It's been an amazing conversation. And I want to focus a little bit more on us in the UAE, us maybe in this environment. And I also look at the audience and I see a lot of diversity, maybe too many females. A recent study, end of 22, is saying that 2/3 of GCC workers reported some kind of mental well-being challenge, and 1/3 believe they are suffering from burnout. Tell us a little bit about the real situation here. Are we better off or worse off compared to the rest of the world? Are we in a special environment where we have 200 different nationalities, cultures? Is the situation of an expat adding or taking away from all these drivers?
How long do we have? That's a lot of questions, but I will break them down into a couple things. So the first thing that I want to say is that people use the word burnout really loosely. I will say that first. I think there is burnout. I think we are all we're probably all in a state of chronic stress, moderate to high levels of stress. But burnout, like official burnout, is actually not as common as what we believe. And the research actually shows that there's over 100 definitions of burnout. And like I said, if I go to a cardiologist, he might diagnose me with something else. If I go to a psychologist, he might diagnose me with something else. So everyone will diagnose you with the lens with which they view. But burnout in itself, which is really where you are in a apathetic, numb, you don't care, anything could happen to you, and you don't have the adrenaline to actually get up and get on with it, that actually is not that common. I shouldn't say that. It is not as common as we believe. Most people will have a really tough month and they'll be like, oh, I'm so burnt out. You're not burnt out, you're stressed. And you stay in that place of stress for a very long time, you will develop. You will go into a state of burnout. And burnout, like I said, it's a whole mind, body, spirit kind of phenomena where every part of you is shut down. It is basically what vertebrate animals go through when there is fight or flight. You fight, you flight, you fight, you flight. And when there is a predator so big that you know you can't fight or flight, your body shuts down and you play dead. Burnout is when you play dead. And so that is what it feels like. And so I have had experience of burnout. I mean, I've lived my life in quite a stressful way. And I burnt out twice, I would say, in all these years. And so I know when that was, and I know I literally could not mobilize myself to do anything, and had to take weeks off of work to be able to actually come back into a regulated, healed kind of way to be able to show up to work again. So that's the first thing that I will say. Is chronic stress an issue? 100%. Is it only related to work? No. I think our life these days is actually quite hectic. The other day I found someone saying that, you know, I really miss COVID. Remember when we didn't have to do anything except just work and like hang out with the kids? Because they weren't juggling the 2001 things that we try to juggle in them. And we didn't have to drive around everything. I could just click a button and everything was supposed to just be where. So this moving around, this hecticness, this busyness, all this information that we're putting into our mind, literally having not a moment where we stop and say, I'm gonna do nothing right now, except look out the window and watch the trees. I don't know if anybody does that anymore. From the moment we wake up till the time we go to bed, we are on some device, and then we're wondering why we're so taxed and burnt out, right? We have smoke coming out of our ears. And there is techno brain. There is more depression and anxiety because we're not. When I'm on my device, I'm not engaging with the things that really matter. So it actually is quite a complex issue, and people are, you know, quite myopic when they think about it as, oh, it's work, or oh, it's my family, or oh, it's because I'm not exercising. It actually is multi-layered, it's quite complex. Now, being an expat, coming to the third part of your question, of course, the UAE in the life is safe, we are comfortable, we have a lot of different resources that are accessible to us. But just the safety, I think like sometimes we take some of that stuff for granted until you like go to another country and then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how safe and relaxed I feel when I walk down the street or when I leave my purse and I go grab something. And you know, some of these things we take for granted, but our nervous systems are actually quite comfortable here when it comes to safety. But we are in a very high-paced environment. Dubai is like next level, right? When I first moved here, I said like Dubai is like the Olympics, and I'd moved around quite a bit as a child, but like moving to Dubai, like I was like, it made a woman out of me. Like I was like, I came here a girl, and it really made a woman out of me because everything in Dubai is changing all the time. You're not going to go away for 2 weeks in the summer. You're going to come back, and there's going to be a new highway that you're going to have to take to work, because that's how quickly things move. And when something is changing so much around you and growing so quickly around you, and there's all this stuff happening inside of you, you don't feel any stable ground. You're literally in uncertainty, and there is uncertainty inside of you. So that's one thing that I would say that is very specific to the UAE. It has a very different energy than, let's say, Thailand. If I moved to Thailand, it doesn't have the same energy. Or if I moved to China, I wouldn't have the same energy. But being an expat does bring with it its own set of stressors. You have children that are third culture kids. You have families that have to uproot and then settle en route, and you have to make new friends. There's a lot of unprocessed grief, usually for expats, that they actually never said goodbye to the old place, and now they're in this new place. They have to reestablish themselves. So that is an unusual thing. And then you don't have your usual support networks. You don't have your familiarity. You don't have that same, that's the things that contain you. You don't realize how much the street that you live on contains you, or the doctor's office, or that restaurant that is your neighborhood restaurant. You don't realize how much those things contain you until you don't have those things anymore, and everything is new. So not having your family around, and even if you have your family around, just not having things that are familiar can actually add more stress to the expat.
And women versus men?
So my work primarily is with men, and it has been for, I would say, the last decade. And the tide is changing. Men are fed up as much as women are, because men versus women is an issue I feel very strongly about, because it is not a man versus woman issue. It is a man and women versus patriarchy issue. And patriarchy is just as minimizing and dismissing and binding for men as it is for women. And of course, women have a very unusual set, and I've been fighting for that my whole life. I'm a woman, I have 2 daughters, I get it. And I come from quite a patriarchal, machismo type of environment. So I understand the plight of the woman, and I stand with that. But I also see the plight of the man, and how they have literally zero socialization when it comes to speaking about feelings, when it comes to talking about their stressors. And then one day they grow up and they get in a relationship, and the woman says, okay, now tell me how you feel. And then they're like, what? Feel what? I don't feel anything. And then they're like, well, you don't feel anything. And it's like really like, well, no one taught me how to talk like that. It is a language. Feelings is a language, and women are socialized in that language. Men, from a very young age, you fall, come on, be a big boy, stop being a crybaby, stop being a sissy, stop being a girl. Like, those kinds of things really create this, like, split inside of them, and it becomes quite an exiled part of them, their emotional life. So it's quite lonely for most men, and it's quite a stressful, exiled kind of existence that a lot of men are living, but now, and most men would rather die, literally, than to talk about their feelings. And the suicide rate in men is far higher than it is in women, because they don't know what to do with their pain, because no one ever taught them that. So that's how I feel about the man versus woman issue. But I think that, obviously women have their own set of stressors. They are caregivers, they are in the sandwich, they are the primary caregiver. Even if they are the primary breadwinner, they are the primary caregiver. So some of these things we have not deconstructed yet, and it's just put women in a very, very sticky situation where they are dealing with a lot of stress. And during COVID, it set women back 30 years, because so many women left the workforce, because it was just almost becoming impossible to do all the things that they had to do and still work. And you see that a lot. You see a lot of women that are just burned out because they reach somewhere between 45 to 50, and that's when they say, I can't do what I was doing, and I have to step down from this or step away from this, because the highest rate of depression and anxiety in any age group, any gender, anything that we're talking about, is women between the ages of 45 and 55. And what happens to a woman between 45 and 55? We can talk about that, but you didn't ask me that question, so I will stop there. But it's a very stressful period for a woman.
Thank you. I learned a new term, which is third
culture kid.
That's a new term for me.
That's when a child their passport belongs to one country. So my children are third culture kids. They were born in the USA, but they were made in the UAE. And they have American passports, but all they've ever known about their life is the UAE. And they are Pakistani, and they've been to Pakistan, several times, but they don't belong to Pakistan. They don't belong to the US, and they don't belong to the UAE. They almost like live in the hyphens in between those places.
My children are the same.
Yeah.
Culture, stigma. I'm talking about this part of the world, and then technology. Many people spend a lot of time on these devices, maybe running away. I spoke to somebody and I asked her, what is ChatGPT for you? And she said, therapist. Self-awareness. How do we know we have a mental issue? And how do we come to recognize that? And what do most people do given the culture and the stigma that we have in this part of the world around mental health?
So yes, we do use technology too much, and I think we need to have like some digital boundaries. It is designed for addiction. It is designed to keep your eyes on there. They don't care about you. They don't care about your family. They don't care about your relationships. They don't care about your mental health. All they care about is that are you on their app as long as possible. So knowing that, and knowing that the people that have the lowest use of social media is Silicon Valley, and they don't let their children on these devices, I think maybe we need to do some things differently and make our own decisions. So that's the first thing that I will say about technology, is that it's like the biggest sort of experiment that is happening, and everyone's just sort of for the ride, and no one's really thinking about, well, hold on a minute, like what's this really all about? So I would say really inform yourself and really understand what is it that you're doing on there and why before you engage on that. You also said, what was the other part of the question? It was really good, actually. The question.
Self-awareness, how do you know?
Self-awareness, yes. How do you know you have mental health concerns? I think if you feel unsettled, so one day I have an 18-year-old daughter, and one day she came to me and she said, Mama, I think I'm depressed. And I was like, okay, here we go. Like, this is it. This is a moment where I've been training for. And I said, okay, tell me what you've got. And I was like, tell me what's going on. How long has it been going on for you? And so we look at intensity, frequency, duration. Okay? Intensity, frequency, duration. How intense is it? 1 out of 10. It's a 10. Okay. How long through the day have you been feeling this? All day, most of the time. Okay. All day. How long has this been going on for you? 2 days. Okay, now, what happened before? Oh, I got in a fight with my best friend. Okay, so this is not depression. This is life. Welcome to life. You will have good days and you will have bad days, and there will be ups and there will be days where they will knock the wind out of you. And that is normal for mental health. And I think looking at mental health, just a 101, looking at it as a spectrum, and you look at physical health and mental health as it being on a spectrum. You have good physical health, and then you have like Olympian physical health, right? Like these people are training day and night and eating right and sleeping right, and they're literally obsessed with it. So this is like optimal physical health. And then you have everybody else who's good at their physical health. We sleep, we eat, we exercise, and then there are times when like guests come over and our sleep is compromised and we're eating too many burgers and then we are not sleeping on time. All of that is going on. And we start to move over into this part of the spectrum, which is poor physical health. We don't feel good, we feel tired, we feel exhausted, we feel bloated, we're not feeling good. Poor physical health at that point. But it doesn't become a physical illness unless we stay doing that. Then it becomes diabetes, GI issues, cardiology issues, all of that stuff, right? Then it becomes a physical illness. The same thing goes for mental health. If you have good mental hygiene that you are practicing, and like I said, there is no difference between physical or mental, like your sleep has a huge impact on your mental health and how you show, on the quality of your thoughts, feelings, and your behaviors, which is what mental health would be. Now, if you are practicing good mental hygiene, you would be doing those things. But then there are times where, oh my God, I have a big project coming up, and there goes the exercise, and there goes the sleep, and there goes all my stress management and meditation, and we start to slip over into poor mental health. And at that point, you can quickly pull yourself back and say, oh, no, okay, come on, I need to get it in check. But if you stay within poor mental health, and you stay there and you don't do anything about it, it will become a mental health condition. A mental health condition being mostly depression and anxiety, which are the two most common. And then there is mental illness, which is actually more chronic. And I really do like to distinguish between mental health condition, which is so much more common, than mental illness, which would be more chronic, like bipolar, schizophrenia, dementia. These things are something that you will need to stay on medication for the rest of your life. So just knowing that you feel a little bit wobbly, that's when you know that your mental health is compromised. You don't want to stay in a compromised state for too long. Now, I will say, because most people here are within a certain age bracket, when you come to the part in your life where you're like, I have everything, but I'm not happy, that it's time to go have a conversation with a therapist, because that will result in you doing all kinds of behaviors to bring happiness from the outside. You will start to act out. You might even do things that are outside of your values. You might start to engage in numbing behaviors like sitting on Netflix for hours at a time, or drinking, or drugs, or any of these things to create happiness when there is no happiness. And that, when you come to that place in your life where I have everything, but I just don't feel happy, that's a calling to do your inner work and that self-awareness.
Is that midlife crisis?
It is the beginning of that, yes. And my expertise is in midlife crisis, by the way, so we can have a conversation about that.
That was another point I wanted to bring up, because I think, and that's the last question, mental health. I learned another word, mental hygiene, so I'm going to discuss it with my wife today. Midlife crisis. How much of what we talked about is normal? I'd argue midlife crisis, to an extent, is probably normal. And as we develop and go through life, there is probably a point where midlife crisis becomes a factor. And where is mental illness, and how does that fit?
You know, no one teaches us how to do adulthood, right? They just think that if I teach you how to get a job, and if I teach you how to make money, and if I teach you how to buy a house, like I've taught you adulting. But that's not really adulting. Adulting is really knowing how to do life. And life is not easy. Life is complicated. It has relationships, it has layers. You have your own psycho-spiritual part of you that is evolving. And usually I have found around, and it actually happens a little bit earlier here in the UAE, I've noticed, than in other parts of the world, because we do have, we can outsource a lot of the things that usually keep us busy until 40. So, you know, our kids are, you know, we have support with our kids and our cars and all these other things that we keep ourselves busy with in other parts of the world. Here they tend to be outsourced. And so I have found that people might enter this kind of midlife, and I don't like the word crisis, because sometimes it's like, oh no, that's not me, because that means it's a man who marries a younger woman and drives a red car. And that's not what a midlife crisis is. A midlife crisis is the passage between first adulthood and second adulthood. The first adulthood, where you did everything according to the checklist that was given to you. Get a job, get married, have a bank account, you know, have some kids, send the kids to school, and then you arrive at a place where you're like, okay, I did all of that. And then you say, now what? that's when the crisis begins. And that's when the passage begins where you said, I did everything, but I'm not happy. And that's where a lot of the questioning starts to happen. When that questioning starts to happen, it really destabilizes people because your identity is in question, your self-expression is in question. Well, why did I marry this person? It was because my mom wanted me to marry this person, not me. So everything starts to come into question, and people then move into saying, well, what do I want? But before I say, what do I want? They say, who am I? And so those kinds of questions, what do I want? Who am I? Where am I headed? Is this my life or someone else's life that I'm living? Those types of questions are the questions that we ask in the middle passage. And that middle passage, you move. And once you enter that second adulthood, that's the work of a lifetime because you don't stop growing. I've been doing this work on myself personally for many, many years, and I still have many things that I have to uncover. So that second adulthood is this ongoing journey until death, which is where you are spiritually developing and psychologically developing, not physically developing.
Excellent. And really thank you very much for this insightful conversation. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Let's move to the next topic. Thank you very much.
I will say that I have a TEDx talk that I've done on the middle passage, and you will find it on TEDx if you want to know more about this, because I go into quite a lot of detail. I've walked many people through the passage, and I've found some really interesting patterns as it comes to the middle passage. So, and I have a great book recommendation also on it if you guys are interested.
Yes, thank you very much.
Everybody's like, tell me, yeah. It's actually called Making Meaning at Midlife by James Hollis. It's also on my Instagram account in my books highlight. Yeah. Sure.
Will we take one question or?
Yes,
we have?
We don't have time, but we'll still take
I'll make it really, really short.
I know you have to run as well, so. Yes, one question.
Hi, from your experience, how do you see the correlation of the soul from 3 dimensions? How do you see the health of, let's say, the body, the mind, and the spirit? How do you see the correlation of that from your experience dealing with client? And the second question is, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, we're limiting the questions, no time.
Yeah, so how do you see the correlation of the soul from 3 dimensions, the body, the mind, and the spirit, from your experience in terms of dealing with people?
You know, when I did my doctoral studies, I am a clinical psychologist by training, but I'm also now training to be a Jungian analyst. And I found that they really made it quite sterile because it was all about thoughts and feelings, and that was it. So it was the mind and the body, not even the body, it was just the mind and the emotions, and that's it. And I find that just not encompassing of the human experience. So I actually wouldn't divide it into mind, body, soul. I think they all speak to each other. And we need to move towards a place where all of these 3 things are, and maybe even more parts of us, are communicating with each other. But what we've done is we've neatly compartmentalized, well, this is my mind, and this is my body, and this is my spirit, when it actually doesn't work like that in the human experience. They all are an integral part, and coming at it through a holistic lens is going to be super, super important. So I think if anybody knows anything about my work, like for me, spirituality is very much linked to mental health. And my spirit is my guidance, it's my intuition. And that intuition, you could say, is my heart. And that heart is speaking to my mind. So I wouldn't know how to distinguish between these 3 parts, but knowing and becoming familiar with that terrain. I think there's no map for that. And that's why people like to just break it up into pieces. So it is a very slow process of getting to know all these different parts of you and getting acquainted with those parts of you. And that's why most people don't want to do that work. But yeah, I think there is no separation. They all are part of the human experience.
Thank you so much. Bashar will actually have a chat with them and find out where do come. There's more chairs now, I think. So there's where sit on the side. You join us.
Thank you.
We're missing one person, correct? Okay. Okay, but I think we can start. Yeah, we can start so we can keep time. So I think it was a great introduction, and we're setting the stage to something that's very relevant to the whole conversation. And we've kind of articulated the problem and the challenge, and you're now the magic solution. Of course, Ines is my favorite panelist. We seem to end up every
together.
Yeah. But I'll not start with you.
Please, it's like actually walking out from a therapy session after all of that great talk, Dr. Saliha.
So Mirna, yes. Okay, great, thank you. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. How does it contribute? And how can people benefit from it?
Thank you. So I'm Mirna. I'm the co-founder of Algo, which is an AI-powered well-being platform for students in schools. So basically what we're trying to do is to integrate mental health education into school curriculums by the power of AI. Everything we do is evidence-based, so we have developed a full curriculum based on CASEL, CBT, mindfulness, and positive psychology, and come up with one curriculum that can go across all grades. They can teach these different, let's say, concepts about mental health within school settings, and we're using AI because most students are digital natives to be able to identify high-risk cases and create pathways for counseling.
School, you mean?
Schools, yes, normal schools.
K
to 12.
Yeah,
K to 12, yeah.
And AI on its own?
No, trained. Not ChatGPT, we get asked this a lot, so everything we do is within a walled garden, so basically we're using AI for good. We're trying to get all the different studies that are available for us right now and use them in a way to be like clinically applicable. So we have trained the model.
Used by the students or by the teachers?
So it's both. So the teachers use it to give lessons within the school setting, and the students, they use it for their own, let's say they want to know more on how to manage their feelings. We have resources that are available. They can talk to our AI-powered journal, express their feelings, whatever is happening with them. The role of the AI is to identify high-risk cases for the counselors and create that, let's say flagging for them.
Putting up a flag on.
Yeah.
And how do you feel within this generation? Is the stigma, the cultural impact of it same as it was when I was 21? Or?
No. I think they're more open. I think it's a double-edged sword with social media. It has opened up, kids and youth to opening up about their feelings and their mental health. But the problem is the self-diagnosis, and they go on TikTok and they see an influencer who talks about something, and that's not really it. So this is actually one of the things that we're trying to make better through the use of Algo. So instead of going to any social media platform, they can go to our app and actually find evidence-based resources. So we don't just come up with reels and things like that. We come up with real resources.
Excellent. Sheena.
Hi.
Give us a little bit of an overview about yourself,
Sure.
but also what you're doing.
Hi, my name's Sheena. I'm CEO and founder of StressPoint Health. We've built the world's first software solution targeting emotional regulation. We do this through digitized neurofeedback. It's the first time that neurofeedback is available in a software solution, and we use sound frequencies to deliver the therapy. We have a patent pending on the development of our frequencies, the relationship, and their therapeutic effect. So we've really taken the science behind sound frequencies and the impact on brain function and brain regulation, and combined that with the theory of neurofeedback and the ideas behind neurofeedback, and particularly concentrated it on emotional regulation.
Many difficult words. my grandmother wouldn't understand it. So can we talk a little bit about what that means in English?
Absolutely. So what that means is, and the panel referred to it before, emotional regulation. It's a huge part of mental health, mental well-being, and also physical health. So when we experience imbalances in our nervous system or we experience something traumatic, I myself had PTSD, so I understand first post-traumatic stress disorder. I had a road accident. I was run over by a truck, and I developed PTSD from that as a consequence of this traumatic experience. And so when that happens, the first thing that happens in your brain after fight or flight is emotional dysregulation. So this is the inability to regulate your responses to triggers, to situations, to people. Things become exaggerated when you suffer. And this can also be a consequence of chronic stress. So if you're constantly in a stressful environment, let's say at work, you might find that somebody just says, "How are you today?" and you are unable to control your emotional reaction. You might start crying. Or somebody says, "I'm sorry, but this report was not good enough," and you fly off the handle and have a really angry response that's disproportionate to the situation.
And how do you help with that?
So what we do is we use sound frequencies to automatically regulate that part of the brain.
How?
So you'll enter our app, you'll be asked a series of clinically validated questions, and then the algorithm will recommend a certain number of sessions for you. Then when you enter the session, you'll be asked to focus on something that triggers an emotional response, or something that is stressful for you, or something that causes anxiety. You'll then hear one frequency, and this frequency will basically induce that stress response, so take you to a dysregulated state. And we basically tell the user, it's all voice guided, to click set when you feel uncomfortable. There's a lot of clever things going on behind the scenes within the algorithm, and a second frequency is presented to you. And there's a special relationship between the first and second frequency. This frequency is breaking the connection between your trigger and your response, and it's called the disruptor frequency. And you listen to that combination of frequencies for 20 minutes. At the end of the session, you'll feel calm and relaxed. Over a course of sessions, your brain will start to learn and remember that healthier, regulated response. And so the idea is, over a period of time, you will be able to regulate your emotions. And what I believe and know from my treatment pathway is being able to regulate your emotions makes therapy far more effective. You're able to then process CBT, logic, thinking, decision-making, behaviors so much more easily when your emotions are not overtaking every single thing. And that's what I knew from my treatment journey, was my experience as a patient, and I wanted to bring that to more people, because a lot of times emotional regulation therapies, so they're called EMDR, neurofeedback, medication is often a suppression of emotion, so you don't feel anything, but it doesn't really regulate your brain over time. Here we have a scalable technology solution that can work hand in hand with clinicians, can offer, I mean, we were having a conversation about insurance that, you know, oftentimes where insurance only covers for you 5 sessions, you're only just starting to get to the root of things after 5 sessions, and then insurance ends. What do? Well, if you use a regulation technology like ours, when you go to see a clinician, you're already in a place where you can start processing the good work that needs to be done on the cognitive side, so on the behavioral side.
Thank you very much. I think I learned a lot of things today, and it was a great way to explain it. Before we go to Mr. Insurance, Inas, tell me, you don't need to tell me, but tell the audience what you're doing.
Thank you. It's always nice to meet you, and Dubai team. We enjoy this, so thank you for all the great work. Today, again, it's been a great therapy session for me. Dr. Saliha, you always inspire me, and one of your followers. And we love that the ecosystem in this country continues to grow with the passion and a lot of experiences that has been driving each one of us. Takallam is the basically well-being solution that we have created to ease access to self-help tools in addition to online counseling. Khawla Hamad, the founder and my partner in this, we both had our own journey of a struggle with so many things to do, and that endless of to-do list in addition to postpartum depression for her. For me, the grief after my dad passing away, it's still something that I am living with it on a daily basis. So we are very much driven with these stories, and we want to create a simple solution that can ease the access to us as working individuals in this very demanding environment, where we have the access to resources and learn how to start the journey and begin the journey from our own place at any time, at our own convenience, with a complete privacy. As our users, they have the option to join the sessions and start the sessions, as Neha maybe mentioned in the first panel. They can be anonymous, start even with a chat, and we encourage them to take them from one step to another. So that is Takallam. Takallam is the Arabic word for talk. And we're building that journey to encourage people to start and begin their well-being, overall well-being journey.
Excellent, thank you. Jayesh, do we do enough? Do these insurance packages that we have today live up to the real requirements in the market? And how do you see it?
So I think that's a very fair question, and my colleague from Cigna touched upon this earlier today as well. I think mental health has come a long way in the last 10 years, predominantly in the West. It is very much stigmatic in the region at the moment in time, but what we're seeing is more and more accessibility. We spoke about it as well. We're trying to make it more and more inclusive for our members to access insurance when they need it. We're trying to make it more affordable, so most of the plans that we do offer are usually paid in full. The 5 sessions is one aspect of our digital capabilities, but yeah, we are trying to make it more and more accessible, inclusive for members to get that need, to get that help that they require on whether it be a chronic condition, whether it be an acute condition. So we are offering that as part of standard. The other thing panel A brought up earlier was the affordability issue as well. So what we're also trying to do is now get more and more providers within the network so that people aren't out of pocket. They can go get the treatment that they need, that they have to get in order to be mentally prepared for any phase they might have.
Excellent, thank you. Sheena, other than the 5 sessions being a limit, what are the challenges in what you're doing? How can you overcome them?
I have a really long answer, but I'm going to go with the short answer. I think in this region there are particular challenges around stigma and around the ability for people to seek help within their own self. And I think the first panel talked about that a lot. But I don't think that this is limited to this region. I do think that the idea of accessing or talking to somebody about our problems, so perceived when it comes to mental health, is actually more of a universal problem than we might realize. It's one of the reasons why when I developed Stress Point Health, I wanted to do something that wasn't involved in the talking side, that wasn't involved in expressing what it is that you feel, because some people don't know. They just know that they have something going on. Other people don't want to talk, and it can shut down. And for others, it can be re-traumatizing. If you've been through something deeply traumatic, talking about it can actually be re-traumatizing if you don't receive the right help. Or, in certain cultures where it's like, okay, let's just talk about it as a family, can be really damaging. And so what I want to see the mental health and brain health solutions, both technology and otherwise, is really offering different types of solutions for different types of people. I think one size fits all has been the go-to in Western culture as well. I'm from the UK, so in the UK, it's just about, you know, keeping people just above water. I think we have the opportunity here to really look at prevention and how technology can kind of catch things early on. I think insurance and employers have a part to play in that, not letting things get to a point where it's really difficult and clinical intervention is the only way to help. So I think these challenges are about all of us collaborating together, insurance, innovators, healthcare providers, to bring to the patient. And I'm not a doctor, and I'm, you know, from the finance world and a technologist. I come at this from the patient's perspective, that if we don't put the patient first and their needs, we're never going to see inroads. We're going to pay a lot of lip service. We're going to tick a lot of boxes. We're going to have lots of great, you know, discussions around mental health. But the patient, at the end of the day, whether that's someone with a diagnosed condition or not, is in the end still going to suffer, because we're not giving them the right tools in the way that they want to use them, not in the way that we think is right.
Excellent, thank you. Mirna, where are the challenges?
I think there are lots of challenges for us. Like, first of all, it's the schools. Like, still we don't have enough awareness as to how important it is to integrate mental health within the school setting. Second, it's cultural. So there's a lot of stigma, especially in this part of the world. So we see a lot of pushback from the parents. They don't want their kids, you know, speaking to technology about their mental health. So more or less, it's the general feel of stigma is still around, and we're trying to navigate this by saying we're not actually therapists. So what we're trying to build the awareness of kids around mental health and how to take care of themselves and building their resilience, while at the same time giving them the space to be able to communicate in the language they know best. So that's what we're trying to do.
So I want to just highlight this. So you're not the therapist, you're just providing the platform. How do you know what's on the platform is the right content to the
we have psychologists.
So people actually worked on it. I wanted to make sure
yes, we have.
This is coming out. So there's a lot of input that went into this to make sure that it's handled responsibly and it's got the right.
We're not a therapy platform. What we do is we integrate mental health education, meaning raising the right awareness and around mental health and how to take care of ourselves from a very young age. Because this is something that's been missing, I think, within our communities for a long, long time. So as you mentioned during the first panel, like, we grow up, we don't know anything about adulthood. And most of it is actually about managing our emotions and navigating life around that. So no one teaches that, right? So what we're trying to do is trying to put it into school curriculums as a standalone, as a subject, like English, like math, like anything else that we learn. So that's what Algo is about.
Great, thank you. Ines, Takallam has no problems. Everything is...
Well, we have, you know, always looking into this and continuously looking for what's the tricky part of actually, because if we know the real pain point, then maybe we can work on solving it. Because if we go and talk about stigma alone, okay, then online should have solved all of this. People, they can go anonymous, they start booking their sessions, they are on their journey. If we're talking about affordability, then also that can be the solution. What it is really that stops a lot of people that I know in my circle, at least, and I'm sure you can relate to, that they are in a very stressful condition, maybe in a mental health condition. They know it, they are learning about mental health because now, thanks God, there is a lot of awareness happening about it, but yet they are not taking that step to go and speak to the doctor or speak with a specialist. There is, it takes a mountain, really, it's like moving a mountain for them to start there. And I'm really grateful for going into this journey because I have learned a lot. Like, I have this feelings and emotion wheel there on my daughter's table, and I'm happy that I learned about that, and now it's a part of practice. So I try to apply a lot into this, into my personal life, and to help others, because that's been the main motive. But yet, what really takes people to take the action and be ready for the most difficult task, as it was also highlighted, to meet yourself, it takes time. Unfortunately, we have waiting lists, but it will be of those who they are in mental health, most likely illness, where their life has been paralyzed. I had a sister who has been actually as a borderline, in a borderline condition, and that also raises awareness. But why do we have to reach that condition and that status for people to start embedding the mental health hygiene and the practices and use these available resources? We have a lot of it. It's available online. I mean, a lot of content is available by great people that they really want to help. So awareness, it might be the journey. It might be that our generation, unfortunately, we were not raised in a way that we had that emotion wheel there, and we still don't know, except to name 6 feelings. And that's why it's going to take us a while. So there is a lot of work to do to identify the real problem. We're always searching for this, but yet we like to work with insurance, we work with employers, we work with universities, we have created wellness programs with different people, and we are really committed for Takallam to be part of the solution.
Thank you. Jay, how can we help move the mountain?
Thank you for that question. I think what we're trying to do over here is make a mountain of a molehill. We know there is an inherent issue in society. I mean, the last study that we did, and Dr. Afridi also touched upon it, was that 57% of the UAE population suffers some kind of mental health issue, anxiety and depression being the highest two at 56 and 53%. From our own analysis at Bupa, what we realized is that we had probably 4% of our claims spent on mental health, which has now gone up to about 27% in the last 4 years. So addressing the elephant in the room, you know, we as an organization, we as a company, and a lot of my peer companies as well, have understood that mental health is now becoming part of primary care. It's not a separate thing, it is part of primary care. The top 5 conditions from an insurance perspective that we've seen analysis, mental health is creeped into number 5. So there is that inherent need for it to be addressed, you know, and this is what I mentioned earlier in terms of us as a company or as a provider getting more and more providers onto the network to make sure that it becomes inclusive, so as to say, for members to get access to service, because at the end of the day, members need that access to service. Dr. Afridi once again brought up a really good point, and I'm sorry if I keep referring to you, but I think you brought up a lot of really good initiatives as well. What we can do as individuals, as companies, as organizations, as pioneers, is to make sure that we encourage individuals to take that first step to ensuring that they get that treatment. You know, I think without what we as individuals do in order to make it more inclusive, more accessible, if we don't encourage that people to take that first step, then, you know, we're going to be in the situation 5 years down the line again, you know. So in my opinion, I think we're making a mountain of a molehill. We know there is an issue, and, you know, we have the means to address it, but I just think we need to be more and more active in that space.
Thank you. Last couple of questions. Mirna, how can we scale?
How can we scale? Well, we need funding as a tech platform. Yeah, we need funding, we need government support, we need more adoption, you know, we need communities it's a lot of things, you know, for us, especially when we're talking about, you know, kids, youth, schools. It's really like a community effort with different stakeholders coming together and saying, oh, now we need to really integrate this and start from the very early years by, you know, giving them the space, giving our kids the space to feel, to process, to understand, and then growing up in that sense by doing the preventative, mental health journey that they can go on.
Same question, Sheena, how can you scale?
I mean, I agree. Funding for sure. That's a barrier, I think, for technology, certainly. Understanding, you know, that the impact that technology has. Technology is the scalable answer. Technology is in and of itself scalable and has the ability to reach people. So what I believe is that technology is not the golden bullet. I don't believe by itself it's going to solve all the problems. But I think it can be the catalyst for that. I think it can mean, you know, wait lists at clinics can come down. People are not getting worse while they're waiting for treatment. They can use technology in the meantime. Or maybe it will prevent them from needing specialist care at all, or maybe less specialist care. That's where I think technology has the ability to really augment clinical outcomes, to really reach more people, to help bridge the gap between employers and employees. But yeah, it requires funding, it requires all the stakeholders, insurance particularly, to to really support technology's progression. I think government certainly has a part to play. I think we're lucky in this region that we don't have a legacy healthcare system, so we can kind of leapfrog into digital a little bit more easily than, let's say, the UK, where we have a very complex health system that means digital is very fragmented and complicated to implement. So I think we have an opportunity here to really be the best at tackling this problem if we can all come together.
Thank you. That's exactly where I want to end on the top. So, Ines, give us this positive outlook on. He's moved the mountain for you, so it's clear now.
Yeah, actually, again, today and having this session is a great positive outlook. Another thing I've learned by working with psychologists is to be present and enjoy the moment. So there is a great that is happening in terms of technology and what it can do. It's magical. I mean, for me, once you mention technology, it comes with it can be the solution. Yet at Takallam, we know that for the scalability, where we need to answer and respond to so many to so many challenges, we need to work hand in hand with also the offline and with the psychologists. So more of a hybrid model is something that we are trying to build, where technology can be utilized for building into screening, diagnosis. We build on our mood tracker technology that we have, but at the same time, start introducing digital therapeutics, which can be guided with working with psychologists and have that hand in hand. So that's when we can scale. Of course, that will require support from the whole ecosystem. The leadership is there and giving the clear guidance to work on it. So yeah, today is a great start. And we're happy to open a discussion with any partner and support each other with raising the awareness and have more of this. Thank you.
Thank you. One question? Mind and heart?
Actually, to the first question, which culminates and links to Dr. Saliha's ending credits, is that I feel like everything that we talk about is dissecting and looking things from a scientific perspective. But what links everything is how do we alchemize everything together under one roof? And I feel that the whole discord that we're feeling within us is loss of spirit. I'm not saying that spirit in terms of the mystical stuff, but really spirit in Latin means to breathe. And it also comes in the Indian culture of Sanskrit Brahman. So if all the modalities of healing and taking ownership, I feel like there's a lack of talking about the importance of breath. It's the tool to self-awareness, and it's the only thing that you can actually, all of us right now, we're sharing in the same time. Synchronicity in breathing. So I think it's the tool that we talk about first
Sure. Who wants to take this?
I agree with you, but I can tell you from my own experiences with a chronic condition that at some points trying to do that was in and of itself really difficult. And sometimes it takes other tools to bring you to that place of balance. When you're facing a panic attack and someone tells you to breathe, you really want to do that and you know it's going to help you, but you just can't. So I think there's a spectrum of looking at this that, yes, on a daily basis, being mindful of breath is incredibly important, but we can't, I think there's a spectrum where we have to be sensitive to the fact that it's not a one-size-fits-all. I really believe that every person's condition is personal to them also. So it's about finding the ways that work with them in that moment over a long term, and then getting to them to a place where they can find that balance. I think it's important for it not to be one-size-fits-all. I really, really believe that as someone who's been a patient, but also along this journey now.
I think that's a unique experience. Was there another question? The lady here, then we'll come to you.
I think that's a very fair question. So I work for an organisation, Secure People Global, and we've taken upon us, we've understood the need that mental health is a very key benefit, and on all our plans, mental health is covered in full, so we don't have a limit on the plans. I do understand from some of my peer competitors that similar initiatives are being taken. I cannot confirm that for sure. At the end of the day, if you look at it, you would need to look at it at two ways. First of all, if it's a policy that your company is paying for, it ultimately ends up as a cost to an organization. The other aspect is if you're taking that up as an individual. But in either which way, our plans are designed to offer mental health cover in full without even the need for referral from a psychiatric first, so you can straight away get the treatment that you do need. I think earlier there was a decree that was launched as of December to make sure that mental health is available for one and all, and I think that is the first step in what we are trying to do, or what the UAE is trying to do.
You and yes, you say, yeah. Forgot the question?
So how do you think the knowledge of the self contributes to the mental health in general? Because I think there's a lot of focus about the body and all the physical aspects. Like, how do you think in terms of the general knowledge of the self contributes to the mental health being really well-being?
Who wants to take it?
Yeah, I think so, because we're not
doctors. Can we take the last question and then maybe we combine the answer?
My question was a recap to the insurance. Like, when the medical insurance is, do you see a medical insurance where you're not treating flu, or you're not treating like or you're not treating like any chronic condition that has to do with the body? However, do you see in the future that mental health will be treated as such? Because today, like you speak about increasing the limits, but still we're treating mental health as an accessory, like as an extra health. Like if your company is paying for it, it's going to be the extra premium on the medical insurance because it's not perceived or considered as part of the
core benefits.
Part of the
core benefits.
Core benefits. And I think it should be. We should look into it as a core benefit, like when my arm gets broken.
it's even more important to receive care and be covered with insurance when my mind is causing it reflects back on me, on my children, on my husband, if I'm a teacher, on the people I teach, if I'm in a workplace, on the people I deal with. So I think mental health is extremely crucial, more than anything else.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you 100%. And you know, as I mentioned earlier, we are slowly starting to see mental health become part of primary care. And that is one of the reasons why us as an organizations have included mental health cover paid in full without any additional surcharge to the organization as such. So even if you don't want it, it's there in your policy. And one thing I'm proud of being with Bupa, I've been with Bupa for 10 years now, and our motto is very simple. We help people live longer, healthier and happier lives. The stress being the happier part as well. So we do understand that, you know, there is an element of medical insurance that every individual needs, but you're the most healthiest person in the world, but if you're not happy, then it becomes a moot point. I always like to tell my members that, look, I don't see us as a sick care provider. I like to think of us as a well care provider. So a lot of the elements that we do have built into our policies include a lot of wellness initiatives. And ISIL from my competitor Cigna, once again, it's a great company, and you know they do as well understand that wellness is coming first. So you are starting slowly to see a shift in how medical insurance is perceived and how it is now starting to become an important facet. So yeah, we 100%. I agree with your question.
Thank you. Yeah, I really, just to be mindful of time, I knew we would overrun because we had so many powerful views from so many different perspectives, and I think all of it was important. Thank you to all of you, the panelists, to the moderators for bringing out the best, and thank you to the audience. I would have loved to have more interaction, but we just maybe catch them now and individually and make sure. Yeah, exactly. So as a small token from Thai Dubai, we'd like to call in no particular order. Bashar, can I ask you to please hand over? Psychologists, with community, with insurance, and we look forward to staying in touch and continuing the conversation. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you to your audience for being patient. We'd like a group picture with the panelists, sorry. Yeah.